Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Cool, cool. Okay. Preemptive like Brexit video, The Economist. So, I know in the past century, especially the Northern Irish border has been contentious, to say the least. And I know adding a hard border would probably spark some old emotions. But I like to learn about it. I do not care your politics. I don't care one bit. It does not change my opinion of you one bit. If you voted for Brexit, against Brexit, you're a conservative, Labour, if you voted for Trump, Hillary, Biden, I don't care. Okay? I just want to learn, and let's do it. My name's Connor, by the way. I like to watch things and learn about stuff. Original link, top the description, Discord. Love to have you. I would love to. I'm gonna read the comments, of course, and I'd love to. I like to see your guys' insight. Sometimes it gets a bit contentious, but that's politics. So let's go.
The border between Northern Ireland and the Republic is one of the most contentious in the world. Thousands have died over it. Decided by politics, not geography, its irregular shape looks odd. It divides roads, houses. In one place, it even separates a church from its graveyard.
For an outsider looking at the Irish border, it doesn't make very much sense, but it does have its own curious logic.
So what's the story behind it? And what really divides Ireland?
Even after 100 years, this border is still deeply sensitive.
Ireland's border was created in 1921. While Northern Ireland remained in the United Kingdom, the South left. But to understand why Ireland was divided in the first place, we need to go back in time. In the 1600s, the British, who were mostly Protestants, started colonizing Catholic Ireland. They took
Phones away.
control, who were mostly Protestants, started colonizing Catholic Ireland. They took control of the north, discriminating against Catholics and other dissenters. In 1798, it led to a major rebellion. It was crushed by the British, who decided to adopt a new policy: total control. In 1801, the whole of Ireland became part of the United Kingdom. For Protestants in the north, it was a huge victory. For Catholics in the south, who wanted independence, it was a catastrophe. But it also brought a new opportunity.
Just a question. I noticed that's the Star of David, right? Or at least the two triangle star. Curious what that means.
It was a catastrophe. But it also brought a new opportunity to influence the British government.
There were now Irish MPs going to Westminster, and those people became very significant players in British politics.
Westminster became the stage for the campaign for Home Rule for Ireland, with politicians arguing both sides of the debate. And back on the streets of Ireland, tensions escalated. In 1916, pro-independence Catholics carried out an armed insurrection that came to be known as the Easter Rising. It triggered further revolution that turned into a war for independence.
I saw a really good World Graphics video on this.
It triggered further revolution that turned into a war for independence, with Protestant paramilitary groups in the north fighting to remain part of the United Kingdom. In 1921, the British government ended the war, signing a treaty that gave Southern Ireland independence.
The treaty was signed on December 21st, and Dublin showed its approval with a colourful parade of Gaelic enthusiasm.
But it wasn't a complete victory for the separatists. The British government had decided to carve the country in two. While the northern Protestant communities would remain part of the United Kingdom, the South would be free to rule itself. It radically redrew the map of the United Kingdom. And for the first time, an international border was drawn between Northern Ireland and the South.
So I know this could be a stupid question, but and maybe you'll answer it, but why not just make it... Why not
radically
just make the border kind of more... I'm not saying this would solve everything. It's just a genuine question. Why make it so curvy? I mean, you had to draw the line somewhere. And I know it's easy in hindsight, but why not have more of like a square?
Redrew
I know it's
the map of the United Kingdom, and for the first time, an international border was drawn between Northern Ireland and the south.
There was a very simple and a very crude calculation as to where the Northern Irish border was drawn. It was about trying to have as many Protestants as possible in the north and as few Protestants as possible in the south. That's why the shape of this border is so highly unusual.
okay. Thank you for answering my question right away.
Partition satisfied no one. Catholics in the south could now govern themselves, but their country had been split in two. Protestants in the north had hoped the whole of Ireland would stay in the United Kingdom. And there was one group that was put in an especially intolerable position.
Catholics in the north arguably lost the most here. They were trapped in a state which they didn't want. They were never, it seemed in 1921, ever going to be sufficiently numerous to vote their way out of this.
Over 400,000 Catholics were now trapped on the wrong side of the border. Their plight would trigger decades of bloodshed. In the north, anti-Catholic discrimination became rife. By the late 1960s, civil rights discrimination became rife. By the late 1960s, civil rights demonstrations in America inspired Northern Irish Catholics to protest peacefully for equality. But police often used brutal force to crush the marches. And Loyalist Protestants targeted the protests, as well as holding their own marches. In 1969, a confrontation at a Protestant march sparked days of clashes that spread across Northern Ireland. Overwhelmed, Northern Ireland's Prime Minister asked the British government for help. British troops...
You know what's crazy? It's kind of like nationalism and religion, which both on their own can be pretty motivating factors for... My voice just cracked. For, I've never had something, except for like my family or something where some ideology I have where I'd want to throw down my life for it. So it's hard for me to it just seems like those are two really powerful ingredients and they're kind of mixed together. It also reminds me a bit, I know it's very different, but also a little it reminds me of the Pakistan-India split. Like Bangladesh and Pakistan were both part of India, and then they kind of moved the Hindus, which were majority, or the Muslims, away from the Hindus, and then created this separate section for religions to keep conflict away. I know that's not a perfect comparison, but my mind went there.
Were sent in, asked the British government for help. British troops were sent in. It was the beginning of 3 decades of violence in Northern Ireland, now called the Troubles. In 1972, British soldiers opened fire on Catholic protesters. 14 died and at least 15 were injured. It became known as Bloody Sunday.
I was fired on by the paratroopers, and yet parliamentary democracy was such that I was not allowed to speak.
The event radicalized angry Catholics. Membership of Republican paramilitary groups such as the IRA swelled, and deadly attacks against Protestants and British troops increased.
In my opinion, we cannot do without the Irish Republican Army.
Republican paramilitaries were able to use that border to their advantage at various points. They could flee across that border. They were able to use it to store weapons. Border infrastructure was itself a target as a symbol of British rule in Ireland.
In response, the British armed forces became a permanent presence at the border and established bases elsewhere in Northern Ireland. The IRA argued they were fighting a military occupation, but loyalist Northern Irish militias saw the border as protection against a Catholic majority.
It's interesting. I would have thought that the fervor, I don't know why it surprises me to see so many people from the Northern Irish side to be so ready to protect. I know that shouldn't be. I just figured if you're Ireland, if you're on the Irish Catholic side, you'd have a bit more motivation because you see it as your island, or does that make sense?
They attacked those they deemed Republican sympathizers.
We're going to turn this town into a burning holocaust.
A tit-for-tat campaign of violence began.
3 car bombs in quick succession ripped through the village just a few miles from Londonderry.
Over the 30 years of the Troubles, more than 3,700 people were killed. Many, many more were injured, and most of those who were killed and injured were civilians.
As headlines of attacks and atrocities increased, global leaders attempted to promote peace.
The history of Northern Ireland has been written in the blood of its children and their parents.
In 1998, there was a breakthrough.
Today we can take a collective breath and begin to blow away, let's hope, the cobwebs of the past.
The British and Irish governments and most of the political parties in Northern Ireland came together to sign a landmark deal that became known as the Good Friday Agreement.
What's that, guys? Is that Tony Blair?
The deal removed the hard border between the two countries and stated that if majorities in both North and South wanted to reunite Ireland, they could. The following 2 decades were relatively stable in Northern Ireland, until now.
Question, guys, question, big question. So do the Southern Irish, so the Republic side, so I'm just going to call it like the Irish and British side, okay, just to like make it easier for me to talk. So does the Irish side see the Northern Irish, the British side, as like foreign invaders from Britain, or do they both just see them as different populations with their homes on Ireland, both fighting? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean?
In 2016, the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. It opted for a complete break, ending free movement of people and goods. As part of the UK, Northern Ireland would also have to leave. But with the Republic of Ireland still a member, and the border between the two countries now fairly open, there was a problem.
Yeah, you don't have to be a
As
genius
they were now governed by
to know
different
that
rules again, the obvious solution was to re-establish a hard border.
this is going to cause some
a move
issues.
no one wanted. The only other option would be a de facto trade border in the Irish Sea, separating Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK. This proposal was called the Northern Irish Protocol, and it
See, I'm obviously not that well versed in this history. I'm trying to learn, but even I thought right away about Brexit. I thought like, oh, what about that Northern Ireland border? Like, won't that ignite
the need for a hard border? But Northern Irish loyalists weren't happy.
We are totally opposed to the protocol. We will neither accept it, nor will we work it.
At the same time, increasing numbers of Northern Irish are welcoming unity with the South.
There is this growing centre ground of people who may or may not be religious, people who have grown up in peace, who don't understand the forces which drove Northern Ireland into conflict, who don't identify with them.
These changes might make a united Ireland more feasible, but they could also reignite old tensions in the north.
One of the things which concerns many people in Northern Ireland, whatever their view on Irish unity, is that if we did have a vote in favour of Irish unity, particularly a narrow vote in favour of Irish unity, that could precipitate violence in Northern Ireland. And as difficult and fraught as the Brexit process was in the rest of the UK, there was never any serious prospect of riots on the streets of Ireland. And as difficult and fraught as the Brexit process was in the rest of the UK, there was never any serious prospect of riots on the streets of London, of people being killed, of bombs going off. In Northern Ireland, that would be a very real possibility and perhaps a probability.
What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's true?
Thanks for watching. To read more of The Economist's coverage of Northern Ireland and the Irish border, click the link and don't forget to subscribe.
Cool video. Again, I have no side here. My lineage does go back to the British Isles, Ireland and England. And so I'm always kind of interested in connecting back to my past there and learning about history. And this is a core part of what I consider modern history there. I still consider 1920 to be modern history. And yeah, so I know I'm not going to really ask it to be just try and be. I'm here to learn, okay? And I hope everyone else is too. I hope you're all doing well. Chin up if not. You'll be good soon. See ya.